Hey guys, this video is a little bit overdue, but I wanted to talk to you about positive punishment. It's one of the four quadrants of operant conditioning as established by BF or Burrhus Frederick Skinner. So what is positive punishment? I tell you one thing it is. It's something that's completely avoided by the force-free community, but it's an important part of training. It's an important part of communication with your dog. It's the other half. So if you only tell your dog what's good that they're doing, what's positive that they're doing, how do they understand what is not good, what's not positive? It's clear communication, and it requires, just like with your child, you have to tell your child in their adolescent years as they're developing, that's very good. Hey, super good. I'm proud of you. Look at you. That's so wonderful. And also, no, that's not what we do. That's not acceptable. It's the other part of clear and complete communication with your child or with your animal, with your dog. But what is it? What exactly is positive punishment? Well, we covered negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is the application of force, of aversives, of compulsion that can be escaped or avoided. The difference between negative reinforcement and positive punishment is that positive punishment cannot be avoided. We will typically pair positive punishment with a specific word that notifies to the dog that punishment is coming, and that punishment cannot be avoided. So for instance, we might use the word bad. Now here's what's powerful about positive punishment and Pavlovian or Ivan Pavlov classical conditioning. If I tell the dog the word bad for a certain misbehavior, and then I give that dog a little leash pop, and then I say bad again, and I apply a little leash pop. It only takes a couple of repetitions of this, depending on the aptitude of the individual dog. Bad, pop, bad, pop. What do you think the dog thinks is going to happen the next time you say bad? They've made the prediction between the word and what is about to come next. And so, with a couple of repetitions of or applications of positive punishment, you typically don't even have to use positive punishment any longer. I can simply say in a harsh tone the word bad, and the dog goes, because it knows, it expects, it anticipates what is about to happen next. And so you don't even have to apply positive punishment any longer. So some of the components of positive punishment, what is it? Typically, positive punishment is abrupt, it's short in duration, it's at a fairly high level of aversion or compulsion, and it's quick. Now, myself as a professional trainer, I reserve positive punishment for situations where the dog is endangering themselves, endangering other dogs, or endangering people. So one common situation is dogs that chase cars. That dog, it's just a matter of time before that dog is killed. It's very common, this type of behavior, in shepherds or herding breeds. Why? Because it's innate, it's instinctual for the dog to chase and catch and bite. That's what they've been bred for thousands of years to do. So if you don't provide an alternative to chasing and biting and catching you, cars, or other things, if you don't provide toys or play that allow them to fulfill that innate instinctual desire, requirement, then they're going to seek it out on their own. We don't want dogs to be killed by cars. So that's a situation where I may opt to apply, and because it's at distance, I would typically use an electronic collar in this situation. Less than 1% of my training involves any kind of electronic collar or device. But this is a situation where I'm going to back up the e-collar, the electronic collar, and transmitter with a long leash so I can ensure that the dog doesn't make it fully to the car, but I want the dog to get close to the car as an example. And then I'm going to apply a high level on the transmitter and the receiver on the dog, which causes no physical harm to the dog. There's no burns. There's none of that. It doesn't happen. It's a transmission of electric stimulation through one electrode, through the muscle tissue and into the other electrode. That's all it is. So there's no burning, there's no physical harm, there's no permanent damage. I would apply this relatively high level of compulsion or stimulation with the electronic collar once, maybe twice. Rarely is it ever required again, because the dog has now learned that that car is electric. There's something about it. When I try to bite it, it bites me back. And that's a strong and powerful lesson for the dog. One of the things we have to be careful with in the application of positive punishment, whether it's with a prong collar, a flat collar, a choke chain, an electronic collar, is what's called habituation. So there were experiments that have been done with rats, for instance. And so there's a maze that's laid out, and at the end of the maze is a piece of cheese. And at the beginning of the maze is a metal plate that's electrified. And the rat will go across the metal plate at, say, 10% of power. And it gets a shock, and oh, that's startling. And it gets across the metal plate, and it goes through the maze, and it gets the cheese. And then the rat is habituated by turning the power up to 20%, and 30, and 40, and 50. And before you know it, the rat has been habituated that it can cross that metal plate, it can take the shock, right, to get to the other side. But if we had only turned up the power to maybe 30 or 40% the first time, and the second time, that rat would be done. It would get enough aversion, enough compulsion, enough of a shock or stimulation that it would never want to cross that plate again. So I just compel you guys, if you find yourselves in a situation with your dog where they are endangering themselves, endangering their own lives, potentially causing grievous harm or potential death to another animal, or grievous harm or even potential death to you or other people, consider the use and the powerful application, the powerful potential of positive punishment. It's an irreplaceable tool. It is one of the 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. It's very capable, and it's 25% of the training options that we have available to us. Don't limit yourself with only positive reinforcement and treats.